Bad gear made my photos better, Tony.
That's a controversial take, Chelsea.
It's not. I'm going to prove it. So we often see so many videos about tips on making your photos better, and often it involves gear or technique, but I feel like I've come up with some truly unique ones, including how to use worse gear to make your photos better, and a few other tips I think people haven't heard of.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell people what I think is the most important part of photography, and it's not the old debate of is it the gear or the photographer. It's a third thing.
Is it Micro Four Thirds sensor?
We'll tell you all about it, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
Whether you need your own website or a gallery, or if you need a place to send your clients to sign things or book appointments, you can make it all happen with Squarespace. I love showing off my photos there, and you can get it for free for 14 days. So if you go to Squarespace, you can sign up. You don't have to remember to cancel. You can just try it out. Drag in your photos, see how beautiful it makes them. It's really easy to set up. And if you decide to buy it, you can get 10% off with the coupon code Chelsea. Thanks, Squarespace. All right, let's jump right into my controversial statement, which is that worse gear made my photos better.
Okay.
And I think you're actually going to agree with me once you hear what it is. So I started photography doing stock photography. And the process is that you submit your pictures and then they have to approve them. But often my early work would get rejected for tiny technical things like chromatic aberration or fringing, like maybe a little purple fringe slightly around some leaves in the photo or something like that. And so I had to really learn to pixel peep and find perfection to get my photos on the stock site and sold. But in that process, I ended up kind of chasing the best gear all the time and ending up with like the highest resolution and the sharpest glass. And that was all fine and great. But when I would go to take my gear somewhere, like out to dinner or on a little trip, it would be really cumbersome. And I found that more and more, I just wasn't bringing my camera with me.
Yeah, I've had that experience too. Of course, we test gear and we're known for pixel peeping. So I'm comparing the very best pro lenses against each other, and one of them is always going to be better. And I always felt like I needed to have the best gear possible. But when you do that now, you have $10,000 in gear is your standard walking around camera, and you're going out to dinner, you're going to a new town. You ask yourself, do I want this big heavy thing with 100 megapixels that costs $12,000 just around my neck? And I'll think, no, I'm just going to leave it. Right.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was just getting like a little pocketable camera. It was a Fuji X100 series, and it fit in my pocket, and I was bringing it everywhere, and it wasn't technically perfect. Honestly,
it's not great.
Yeah, like the autofocus is not great, and often like
the image quality isn't often better than a phone.
It's not great. It's a fixed lens camera, and the lens isn't that good. The image quality is just mid, but it was there. And I was taking it out to dinner because it's cute and you put it on the table. It doesn't take up the whole table. It doesn't look expensive. People thought it was a film camera, so no one wanted to steal it, so I'd bring it to any country. And it also was not intimidating. So when I took a picture, people, you know, when I would hold up my big camera, people would say, oh, it's a professional, oh, pose, oh, and they'd get intimidated by the process. But when I would hold up my little X100, people thought it was just an old film camera, and they didn't take it seriously, which meant they kind of like loosened up in front of the camera.
Yeah.
So here I was with this camera that's not good compared to my professional gear, but getting better pictures because it's with me and people are relaxed.
I've had the same experience with my crappy camera of choice, which is the Camp Snap, which is a $65 camera with no screen. It's basically a digital version of those old disposable cameras, and the image quality is so bad.
So bad. It's terrible.
Way, way worse than your phone. But it has a shutter button, which makes it better than a phone. Also, it's cute.
It's cute.
Nobody's intimidated by it. How people react to the camera is really important. And like you said, when you have a pro camera, people tense up. If you have a phone, it feels cheesy. Like they might not even pay attention to you. But when you have a little camera like that, that fun that the camera carries radiates to your subjects, and you get better pictures as a result.
That's so true, because you brought it to a family event and our nephews were taking pictures and making funny faces, and they're adults, by the way, and you know, people were just having fun with it. So quote unquote worse gear, don't come at me. Just gear that's not professional or super expensive, it can make your photos better. Along the same lines, something kind of unexpected that changed my photos for the better was making photo books. And I'd made them before in the past, but really didn't have a clear motive, wasn't really inspired by the process. But then we had our grandson, and I took on this project of taking a picture of him every month around the same time for the first year of his life to track his growth. And it really changed how I looked at pictures, because in the process of laying out his photos and making the book and having this project in mind, it was motivating me to take pictures, and it was making me think of not just one picture, but the larger body of work and how it would be viewed. So I would really urge you to try to make a photo book about whatever it is in your life that's important. Maybe you go to car shows, or I don't know why I just thought of monster truck rallies. That's like insane that popped into my head. But maybe you love your dog or going to the beach. Like, make a themed book, and I think you'll be really amazed by how it changes how you think of your photos.
And I think when you start to compile your photos, you'll realize that some of your best photos are not the technically best photos. Some of them might be a little blurry, a little out of focus. They might have chromatic aberration, but they capture what I think is the most important thing, which is a moment, a subject, something real, something memorable, something important. So people always have the debate, is what's more important? Is it the gear or the photographer? And I think neither of those even rank. By far the most important thing is the subject. It is being there and pushing the button.
Yeah, and maybe the story as well. Like, you have to...
The subject is the story often, right? Depending on the photo.
And you know what I noticed about the photo book too is that I've shown people my pictures on social media and they'll just kind of like scroll real quick. That's good. But with the photo book, I was so amazed. I put it on our coffee table and people open it and they really look, and then they turn the page and then they turn back and they're looking at it twice and they're holding it up and sharing it with other people in the room. So I think sharing things in a non-digital format makes people pay attention more. You have a whole story there, not just a random assortment of photos. So it's very immersive. It's nice.
Yeah, and think about the subjects that are most important to you, closest to you, and stop thinking about how to get the most technically perfect picture, and just think about capturing the moment, about being there, about being in the most beautiful place that you can be, even if you can't bring a big camera, or capturing the most exciting little moments in your life.
Yeah.
Because the subject matters more than anything else.
I think even just sharing things that you actually enjoy, that maybe you like them so much you don't think they're special. Like, we love going to car shows, and I just think nobody would care, but the people there are so interesting. I should really document that. Mm-hmm. The cars are interesting, and then the relationship people have with their cars. There's a lot going on. I feel like I could make a whole book on that alone.
Well, now that I'm 51, when I look back through my pictures, you know what the favorite pictures are in my Lightroom catalog?
Is it me?
Often it's our selfies, taken with my phone, just like this, of us and our friends all together.
Yeah.
It's not the pictures I took facing out of the beautiful scenery, but it's the people.
It's me. It's the pictures I took of myself. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, you're right. And that's like cheesy. We're getting a little old and sentimental, but it's true. I look at stuff that was in my portfolio and I'm like, who cares about that, Chelsea? Why'd you take that picture?
Yeah, but when we took the trip with Dennis to the West Coast, we saw beautiful mountains and deserts, but that wasn't really the interesting subject. The subject was our journey together.
That's
and the
true.
most memorable photos, therefore, are the pictures of us, because it's the subject.
Yeah, that's true. That was fun.
But we have some more tips for you, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
Yeah, another way you can show your pictures in a way that's like cohesive and thought about is to put them on your very own website, and you can also organize them in categories. So I have a cars category, I have portraits, I have like abstract portraits and travel. All the things I care about are in their own little folder where people can see them, my best work, not just my most recent work. If you want to try it out, you can try it for free. Like I said before, you don't have to put in a credit card and remember to cancel. Just try it and it will expire and you never have to think about it again. But I think you will, because it's really fun and there's something kind of like inspiring about seeing your work all in one place. So go to squarespace.com and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. Thanks so much, Squarespace.
Chelsea, something that holds back my photography is pressure. I feel pressure, if I take a picture, I feel pressure to share it.
I don't think you're alone in this. I've had so many photographers that are extremely talented contact me and tell me they're just burned out. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the pressure of taking the pictures and sharing them.
Yeah, I've gotten inside my own head before I take a picture, I start to think, am I sharing this on YouTube or social media? Because then I need to decide, is it horizontal, is it vertical? If I'm going to make a print, where might that go on my wall? Do I want a tight composition, a loose composition? What are people going to say about this?
Yeah.
And so often I end up not taking the picture because I think it's only a mid picture. People are going to judge me about it. They're going to say, oh, the YouTuber can't really take pictures. See, he's not very good. And as a result, I stopped really taking pictures because I was thinking too far forward.
Yeah, like you thought that to take pictures you had to end up with something perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, but I thought that I had to put up like my best picture. If I didn't, I did get comments about it. Even if I knew, I'd be like,
Yeah, you will. It's true.
This is just like a snapshot, but I like it. And then people would say, this sucks or whatever. And it kind of got in my head. And I was thinking about the reaction to the photo before I was taking the photo.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized something was getting screwed up because I was thinking about the reactions of people I don't care about instead of just enjoying what I was doing. So I just started sharing online way less. And that's our next tip. Share less. You should be creating for yourself on some level. So if you find that the feedback on social media or the amount of likes you get is getting in your head and you're thinking of that while you're taking the picture, it might be time to just take a little break and remember why you enjoy the process in the first place.
I'm old enough that when I was growing up, people used film cameras and often like disposable film cameras. And the way it would go is you'd just be taking pictures of what was going on in your life, and then you'd forget to get the film developed. So everybody had just like a stack of undeveloped film. Sometimes it would be like a year before you'd bother getting it processed. That's okay. We need to go back to that, where you just take the picture and you don't think about what you're doing with it next. And I've started doing that. Like my Cam Snap, my Leica, I just have memory cards that stay in there. I take pictures with them, and when I'm done, I put them back on the shelf. They don't go into Lightroom. I don't go start to process them. That takes so much of the pressure off of me because I'm not thinking, when do I have time to sort through the pictures? How much editing do I need to do? Do I need to share it? I just take pictures and forget them. And at some point, I'll connect it to the computer and unload them, and I'll be surprised, like, oh, remember these pictures?
Yeah.
But when you take away that second boring part of the process, it lets you enjoy the photographic process more.
Yeah, I think that is nice too. I'm curious to hear if y'all have struggled with that, like either the whole process being so cumbersome like Tony talked about, or thinking about sharing them and the kind of feedback that you'll get, if people will be mean, or if you're just have your own perfectionism issues of chasing better and better photos. It can really squash creativity to like attach numbers to a creative process in any way.
Really.
Another thing that has improved my photos a lot is having photo friends. One example of this is we just went to Norway with our friend Erland and his friend Simon, all photographers staying in the same house. And we went around Senja, Norway, taking pictures for like 10 days. And first of all, it got me to take more pictures because there were days where I probably would have just like, it was like raining, I probably would have just sat in my pajamas all day. But also it got me thinking of the landscape in new ways because everybody sees something different, beautiful. And like a collaboration ends up happening when you're out with other photographers. So we were posing for each other and we were sharing locations and we were bringing back the photos and editing them together and talking about our process. It was really fun.
One of my favorite moments was we were driving and exploring, just taking wrong turns and going down small roads. And I was driving, you saw a cute house with the mountains behind it and you said, stop.
Yeah.
And all of us got out and we all took pictures. And then when we got back to the room, we all looked at our 3 pictures and we decided who took the best one of those. And then we took that best picture and shared it between all of us. And we all edited it separately. And then we looked at it again and we said, okay, who edited the best picture? And it ended up being a collaboration that produced better images than any one of us individually could have taken. I mean, first, I wouldn't have stopped there. Because I wouldn't have had you, if you weren't there, I wouldn't have seen that shot. And we wouldn't have been in Senja if Erland hadn't dragged us out into the cold.
That's true.
So it really was a true collaboration. And just having friends who also take pictures does so much to improve your photography. And
Yeah.
let them drag you out.
Yeah, let them drag you out. And it doesn't have to be like a big trip like we're talking about if you're thinking you can't do that. That doesn't really matter. We just take our cameras out together when we go to car shows or if we go to a little town. And it's funny because I'll be pointing at something Tony didn't see and he comes over and he gets a picture. I see him squatting down at something I didn't see and I go take a picture. So you're inspiring and collaborating and being pushed to create something new. So photo friends are good. And if they're not in your family, you could join a group. There are all sorts of photo groups that get together and take pictures. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess in the comments, tell us what you think the most important things are in photography. And don't say megapixels. Don't say frames per second.
Maybe
or autofocus
megapixels
speed.
really fuel them.
If that's what gets you to take pictures, is the love of megapixels, then great. But I think you'll find that your pictures are benefiting more from you pressing the shutter and being there than they are from the amount of detail that's captured.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what's made your photos better, that it's non-conventional, because people always think you have to buy more and more expensive gear, and that's definitely not the case. So share down below. We can have a nice little conversation. And thank you, Squarespace, for making this podcast possible and for providing me with a good portfolio, and Tony too. If you want to try to make your own, you can go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace, and thanks to all of you for watching the Picture This Photography podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye.